Breaking the gray.
Sarah, we're here. I just hit record because we were having off-camera discussions and we have to bring them on camera because they're funny. They're good topics. So, Sarah, how are you? You were just visiting the States again. You were here for one day, your one-day tour, two-day tour.
Yeah, I flew in for a bodybuilding show and out again.
Wonderful. Well, we're here today with a guest. Why don't we introduce our guest and we can get chatting about our fun topic.
Okay. So I want to introduce Martin Kremmer, who I first met actually when you were running the Danish Biohacking Group, Martin. That's right. And so now you've got your own company that we want to talk about a bit, which is BioWatch, right? But obviously you're in the biohacking scene and respected, and you write articles. So it's really great to have you on the show. And maybe you could tell us a bit about your journey and how you got here. I think that would be interesting just to start off.
Sure thing. Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to share my passion with like-minded people, and I think that's actually what got me to here. I think like many others in this space, there is a bit of a journey of illness behind me. Thank God it's behind me. I was in my 30s, burned out, traveling the world, had an awesome job with an awesome company, and just working my ass off, literally speaking. And that didn't work out. Physically burned out, not as severe as some of the cases I'm seeing now in my work, but surely enough for me to wake up, right? The usual story, going to the doctor, didn't get any help, just got more pills, and you know the drill. So fast forward, a couple of years from there, I came across this biohacking world, and it was just, to me, the whole tribe thing that was about it. It was just awesome. And the fact that you wake up and you kind of like, oh gosh, there's something I can do. I can actually change my physics. I can change my chemistry. I can change my everything just by taking different choices in life. Oh my God, who would have known that, right? And it was that moment that I realized I need to start a community around this, like many others in the early 2012s and whatever. So that's, we met a couple of years later, I believe. And we've done a lot of interesting things since in the space. We now have 3,000 active members in our online community, which, according to the size of Denmark of 5.8 million people, it's a relatively good Facebook group. And, it's my life now, not the group, but the company that's kind of spun out of the biohacking scene. So that's me.
Yeah. And Martin, I too have had my childhood. I wouldn't say childhood. In my 20s, I had a health issue too, which is why it's interesting to me. And one of the things that came out of this season is Sarah and I have been digging into longevity as we did our epigenetic scores and did our extrinsic and intrinsic ages. And Sarah's intrinsic age was a lot younger than mine. Mine was actually 58. I turned 50 last year. And one of the noted things was that, well, the length of your, if I get Sarah to get this wrong, the length of my DNA, it's not a polymer. What's it called? I forgot what it was called, but she had a different name for it. Telomere, yeah, was shorter. And because I had cancer when I was younger, and I think there's a lot of fear now that I'm older, because a lot of the things the doctor said is like, when you get older, you could have all these other things happen now. And I'm here, I am older. And so, Sarah and I have been reading about, everyone's talking about longevity and all the cast of characters that are out there injecting the blood of their children and, sleeping, ice baths, whatever it is. We're trying to narrow in on what are some of the applicable things that we can tackle and put into our daily regimen to, continue to slow down the shrinking of those telomeres in our DNA. How do we stay younger? And what are the things that we should be employing? And I've recently lost 10 pounds. I've been exercising and doing my keto. I have my acetone H track that I'm tracking now. And I'm in it. Sarah's in it. She's wearing her glasses to block her blue light. But Martin, where do you start? Where do you suggest we start here in this task to live longer?
Oh, that's a great question. And every time I get it, I'm like, should I answer what I always do, or should I just like spin it specially here? And I will, because you guys are seem to be caught onto this longevity theme here. Normally what we do, and I should have said, I'm also coaching people quite a bit now in my company. Everything from pro athletes to executives, and everybody who needs help, basically. But apart from the basics, which it seems like you're already doing, right? Get moving, get eating properly, and all of that. I mean, for me, what we are finding, and with the data that we are collecting on people, both wearable data and hormonal data and stuff like that, it's rewiring back to the basics. Like, rewiring back to nature is by far the most profound thing you can do for your health. And with that, yeah, you can top it up with a whole bunch of supplements to rewind your inner clock, and lose some years. But honestly, what I'm personally, my opinion is, and this is what we call Nordic biohacking up here. It's like, we're in the Scandinavian region. We are not necessarily gung-ho about being 150 years old. We are more about having quality in the many years that we have. Society is not yet built for people being 120 plus. Like, who are they going to hang around? What's going to happen in life at that time? Nobody knows. So I'm like, I would rather focus my energy and time, and the time of my clients, on just getting the basics right, so you can turn 100 and die with your boots on, right? And that comes from doing what is natural to the body, and especially the nervous system, which is what we are ultra focused on. It's like, so many people are running around in a chronically stressed state and don't realize they've shut off their body, and they may be doing all the right things, exercising too much, eating a specific diet, which is not doing them any good anyway, because they may be slightly off in their gut. Who knows? They don't know, at least, right? So I'm like, just get back to the basics, get out in nature, get some sunlight, get some grounding, get all of that stuff that we're not talking enough about, in my opinion. So yeah, there you have it. Rewire.
I would like to ask then, Martin, how you're getting your clients to do that, considering that we all do live indoor lives mainly. I mean, most people who've got any kind of job now have to be on the computer at least a proportion of their time. And if they're not on the computer, they're at least indoors, either in an office or in a shop or whatever people are doing. So I mean, we're totally with you, and we've done so much about grounding and being outside and sunlight, but how do you practically do that? Or are you kind of advocating that people totally and utterly kind of opt out of their jobs?
No, society will not survive if we told people to go and to quit their jobs. I mean, that's another slightly.
It's a good hiring tactic, though.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where what is it called? Quiet quitting. I think is one of those themes now. And yeah, that's another topic. But like, how are we doing it, Sarah? Well, honestly, we do it by inspiring, by being role models ourselves. And the clients that we have so far mainly are executives who are curious and have bought into this new phenomenon where they are in control. So we're really selling, insights to regain control, right? And when we tell people, and there's enough evidence out there, as you know, as a scientist, Sarah, right? And that like, there's enough. I can stand up in front of a crowd and convince them that taking an ice bath or even a cold shower is backed by science. And when people hear that, they go, I'll try it, and we run them through a 3 months intervention program, and we test them before and after. And, we partner with Aura, so we measure them throughout. And it's just, it's an experience for them to learn, oh, I did this yesterday, I slept much better. Oh, I took this ice bath, and look at my HRV. It's all of a sudden, it's okay. Or I worked out the other day, and look at that, my HRV took a dip. And then we have a point of conversation there, rather why it shouldn't take a dip. Well, at least not consequently, or not every time you take a workout should it dip. You should try and have it, more stable instead, right? So it's like, we're using the insights and data to teach people about, the differences in their habits, and be that the more natural ones, but also the more, like I touched on workouts there. Like, we have a lot of people who are doing too much, like work out too much, and they're never recovered. They're never. So convince them with data and insights. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's funny because we had someone on recently who talked about recovery is where you're actually doing, is where is actually the you're doing the work for your body as you're teaching your body to do that. So it is there's a part of this which is fear-based too, and where I get, a lot of it is I'm constantly beating myself up for not doing enough working out or doing enough of something, and that fear really is something that drives me. But I'm wondering, like, what is enough, right? What is enough working out, and is it data based, or is it understanding your body based, or both?
Great question. It's one of those where we can debate as health geeks forever on is it 90 minutes or 70 or 45 or whatever, and what type of exercise, and I think there are definitely some some basics there around. You need to move your body, in my opinion, at a minimum 60 minutes a day. Like, and with moving, I mean, like, I'm standing up all day, for instance, right? I walk around my garden during the day, take meetings outside. Like, I try and incorporate movement. That's a general thing, which if we just get that going with people, we are far better than what the status quo is today. When it comes to like proper exercise, like actually getting a sweat on, I would love to see people doing that every day for just 10, 15 minutes. Just break a sweat. Like, the classic is have a couple of kettlebells in your home office, or, run up the stairs in the office. Just break a sweat. It's very important for your cardiovascular health. Then it comes to muscle strength, right? I have now for 2 years been training once a week. That's it, like lifting weight once a week. And I've put on 2.5 kilograms of muscle just by doing that. And recovery, like you talked about. Like it's a lot of people are training 2 or 3 times a week, doing like spending a lot of time doing a lot of weight training, and a lot of them are not gaining anything. They're still fat and slightly overweight. Some of them, or feel sluggish or don't have enough energy. And I'm like, and the team I'm working out with, it's a very nice network group, and there's 3 options a week, and I keep telling them, like, just do it once a week and sleep the rest. Like, recovery is as much is as important for you when it comes to gaining muscle as working out. So
yeah, I mean, Beans, we're talking with a lot of our guests. We've kind of got a bit personal, Martin, because Russ and I have kind of set ourselves a challenge with this epigenetic age thing, that we kind of do show a result after we do these hacks. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit on what I'm doing myself. Because I was just listening to you then when you said about HRV, because I've started to do weight training, but my HRV does tank after doing the weight training every time. And it kind of oscillates. Like if I look at my HRV, like every month it rises, then falls, then rises and falls, very predictably at a stable rate. Overall it's something like 25, something that's not particularly amazing, according to another guest we had on, Don Moxley, who was saying 70 is kind of athlete. So what do you think is going on there? Because I'm not weight training to get big. In fact, God, I went to a biohackers thing on Saturday. I'm definitely not a bodybuilder. Totally insane what they're doing to their bodies, but really I just want to get healthy. So from that, what would you recommend that I do to kind of stop that?
With HRV, it's an interesting thing. Well, first of all, Sarah, an average, if you look at all the data, and there's this big meta study out there, and I think it was like 44 studies put together in total of 20,000 participants, and the average HRV for a woman of your age is, if I get your age correct, is 35 with a standard deviation of 22. Right, so that you're well in range of being fine, right? And for a male above 50, well, between 45 and 54, it is, yeah. So it's like mid 40s to mid 50s. It's actually 23. So it's a lot lower than you would expect, and it's a little bit of a
that is lower than I thought.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people think, oh, I just need a high HRV. Well, it's not necessarily a sign of good health that you have a high HRV. It's very individual. It's very genetically determined as well. And as long as you're within the range, then according to science, you're normal, right? So yeah, then you can say it's great to see that it's at least constant and that you work it up like over time. But it's not like you can just bring it up 10% in a month. Then you're doing really effective nervous system training, right? Not many people do that. So keep it there. That's great. It will degrade with age. So just keep it where you're at right now. That's a good thing, but getting it up a little bit is even better. So, why does it tank after training? Well, that's probably because you overdid it a little bit, which is, again, it's fine as long as you make sure you recoup before you go into the battle again, right? And that's where a lot of people don't know that they're not ready to work out again, basically.
Yeah, well, like Russ says, you kind of tell yourself, right, I have to go every morning because, now I've got this gym. It's I kind of do sometimes drag myself up. I mean, normally I do my little sunrise walk, but now I sunrise walk to the gym, because it's an early morning thing. But it is it's difficult to assess, whether you're ready for it or whether you're just pushing yourself too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, Martin, I'm certainly not one of these people who's really pushing themselves. I'm making myself sound like I am. This is half an hour, 4 times a week. But this is the piece that I think a lot of people miss, the relaxation and recovery piece. And in biohacking, hardly anyone talks about, do they? You never kind of go where someone's saying, okay, now we're going to talk about doing nothing today. It's very much about pushing and doing something. So what is your recommendation for recovery? Is it literally kind of yin yoga and laying in the sun, or is there kind of an active recovery you can do?
Sure. I mean, sleep is the best recovery for sure, right? And if you don't have your 7.5, 8 hours sleep solid every night, then already there you're losing points. But if you do have your sleep in check, then I would say just light movement. Go for a good walk. That's perfect recovery. Obviously, again, if the basics are covered with good nutrition, don't eat too much, too many high carb loaded, dishes. Then I think you're good. Get enough protein as well. Get the protein synthesis going in your body. If you want to cheat a little bit, essential amino acids, super simple to get into your system, definitely helps with recovery. If you're really sore, go for some curcumin supplement or something. I mean, that will kind of help amp up things. But generally speaking, as you know, when you are recovering, it's an inflammatory condition in your body that you're trying to get over, right? And you need the system to play out naturally for that to work. Don't kill it with painkillers, then you're kind of losing out on the effect, right? So, but another interesting thing on recovery that a lot of people don't talk enough about too, in my opinion, is social, well-being, being together with people, connection, social connections, oxytocin, gratitude, the whole thing. It's such an important thing for recovery as well. And if you're, again, one of those ultra busy business, man, woman, and just, doing your thing and thinking, oh, I got to get my 10K in after work. And then I got to go pick up the kids. And then I got to go cook dinner. And then I got to go walk the dog. And then I'm going to do all those things. It's it's the most typical story we hear with our clients. It's that they're doing too much. And so, yes, teach them to do nothing is part of it. And it's about, sometimes it's more about rewiring their daily habits than finding out new things. It's taking things away. And a lot of executives ending up getting a dog, actually, just because it's a good way to get decent kind of low heart rate training in every day. So
yeah, and it forces you to walk. I just got we're getting a third dog.
I might be stretching it, but
yeah, it's stretching it for sure. But I just got these Phi dog collars, which are essentially the Oura Ring for your dog, so I can see how much exercise my dog really needs. I have 2 giant labs and I have 1 tiny little dog, and quite honestly, they have different needs in terms of exercise. I can take them for a long walk, and the little one can keep going for hours. The lab will lay down on the ground and tell me he's done. But I think it's a great way, to get out there and do that. And also it's relaxing. My dogs don't really need to run. I don't need to go run 6 miles. I can walk 5 miles and 4 miles and they feel great. I am curious about heart rate variability because I've noticed that in losing weight, which has taken me a while. I've complained to Sarah throughout the last 3 or 4 years that I've been really having a hard time losing weight. But recently I just got on this great path and I've been shedding weight, and hopefully it's because I'm healthy and not because I'm sick. I'm kidding, but I'm wondering if heart rate variability goes down, or your kind of like your sitting heart rate actually goes down as you start to lose weight. Because I've noticed that I've gone from 16, 17 up to now I'm averaging about 25 every day now, which I was rarely over 20. So, I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more in there, but I have noticed that that's a one substantive change, is that my resting heart rate's gone down tremendously too. Like I would be in the 70s, 80s, even 90s. Now I'm in 60s and I'm like feeling much more relaxed. I'm sure losing weight helps, but are there things like, one thing I get confused about with heart rate variability is your setting heart rate, like when you're sitting recovering or when you're sitting watching TV or working, is that the number you need to adjust and look at and worry about, or is it the number of getting up to, the variable rates of getting up there, so you're exercising and driving that heart rate up? Because there's two numbers in that equation.
That's first and foremost, Ross. Wow, kudos to you for actually cracking the problem of losing weight, and the fact that you're telling me now that your HRV went up, it's a sign that you were chronically stressed before.
Yeah,
it's just sure. I've seen that a number of times. A lot of people come trying to lose weight, and they've been trying for decades losing weight, can't figure out their stress. Their nervous system is whack, and the body is naturally holding on to all the energy that it can, fat being one of the energy sources. So that's why. But the fact that you're now losing weight because you're doing something good for your body, you have calibrated your nervous system and you're on the way to perfection. The fact that HRV goes up is a sign of a better vagus tone, which is phenomenal for you and your longevity. So kudos to you. Now, what I tend to say, and I think a lot of, I wouldn't call myself an expert in HRV necessarily, but I've worked with a lot of people on it, and I've read a lot about it. And I think the general say right now is that you should not necessarily be concerned about the fluctuations. I didn't answer your question earlier, Sarah, on the monthly cycle, but we'll get back to that. But measure it every morning at the same time, and this is where Aura, in my opinion, is great, because you get an average nightly score. That's great. That's what you want. You want to have a morning measurement, right? And so either an average nightly score or a morning measurement, as long as it's when you're calm. That's what you want, because that's a consistent view you can try and calibrate from. Now, the use of HRV in a very almost like intermittent way, I would call it, like when you try and use it as a gauge for, did this little thing do me good or bad? I think it's great, it's fun, and the fact that you can start to understand how you can control your nervous system is phenomenal. So we use it, and I use it for that with my clients, and I'm not using Aura for that. Whoop actually is a better option for that with the new body battery thing. But even there's a ton of people running around with an Apple Watch that they don't know what to do about. But Apple actually is pretty good with some of the apps that they have. There's one called Veltary, and Veltary is phenomenal in taking a 3-minute snap. And the way it works is there's this breathing exercise on the Apple Watch. Now, I'm not advocating wearing these smart things all the time, but again, you can put them in flight mode, and that's better than nothing, right? And then take a little 3-minute breathing pause 2 or 3 times during the day. Try and do it before and after a meeting just to play around with it. And then you'll get data on what did that meeting do to my nervous system? Did I go into the meeting calm? And you quickly learn how to control your nervous system through the breathing. And that's all. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's a few ways that you need to teach yourself how to breathe properly, and then you're good, right? And then so that's with the fluctuation in the data and all of that. Keep it a consistent measurement every day. Make sure it doesn't tank. If it tanks, you need to change something in your life. If it goes up, you're doing something great. Now, Sarah, for the cyclic thing there, being a woman, hormonal cycles and all of that, you do tend to see fluctuations in HRV throughout the month. So not an expert in that area. One of my colleagues is, but there's definitely something that we've yet to fully understand with the female cycle and HRV.
Yeah. Yeah, Aura has got a thing now where it does kind of track your cycle, but it doesn't necessarily link up to the data yet.
Correct. It's still early days with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's still early days. I think that's pretty interesting, all the stuff about how biohacking women's cycles and what you're doing. I know there's a lot of people who are kind of talking about that now, which is relatively recent. No one ever really spoke about that with fitness before. So that's super cool that people are at least aware of that. And I think I get what you're doing now, Martin. All of your stuff is geared at the nervous system, right? That's really what you're saying to us. It's that you're kind of biohacking the nervous system, and then everything else falls into place. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people don't realize, weight issues, and when you're saying nervous system, you can kind of interchangeably put that with stress, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because I think there's so many people, okay, I want to grow muscle. Yeah. Okay. How are you dealing with your stress nervous system? I want to lose weight. I want to, whatever fitness goals people have. And I totally applaud that, because the more and more we kind of go through this and learn about all the biohacking things, the more I also see that if you're stressed out, none of this has the effect that you think. But also when you're stressed, it's difficult to hear that message. When you are stressed, it's difficult to hear, okay, just set aside a couple of minutes and do a breathing exercise. People kind of you switch off that part of your brain, that's dealing with that. So to get back to basics, have you kind of struggled to get that message over to people, or do you find that people kind of take it on once you explain it to them?
Actually, we're not seeing that many. I mean, there's always the odd person who thinks we're whack and that, just give me some meds and I'm good, right? But like more often than not, people are relatively quick in waking up. And I think a lot of that's got to do with the fact that we've been campaigning the biohacking sphere and movement for almost 10 years now, right? So like the players we have in the company, Nikolai, my colleague who you met, and Jeanette and others, like we're all touting the biohacking horn still, and it's being articles are put out there in some of the big financial magazines about how biohacking is still about to change the world and all of that. So I think we're still riding on that wave, which is great. But we're trying actually not to let that lead, but more let common sense lead, right? And then, but we always tell people our method is biohacking, which means we operate in the crossroad between modern science and ancient wisdom, right? We operate in that sphere where we're starting to get really exciting data on what worked 3,000 years ago. So, like, why look for something brand new and sparkling when you can just do what always been working?
And the fact that everything we've created has actually made it worse for us, and we're going to just cycle back to just, if we are hunting and gathering with a club and a stone, we'll be just fine, and we can eat what we gathered and eat what we hunted and sleep as much as we want in a dark cave.
Yep,
because everyone's going back to dark caves and carnivores. That's our next podcast, Sarah. Dark caves and carnivores.
We've done both of those.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. And Martin, I have a question for you. And this is more getting into the Sarah territory, because for me, I'm always trying to figure out how to start. And I've been starting for a while. Like, I'm on a good path, but I feel like we should always nod to what are some of the things that we're missing. Like, what are some of the, not secrets, but what are some of those a little bit more advanced techniques? What are things that you're just like, if everyone could think about doing some of these things, and it might take some time to get there too. Like, you might have to gear up. Don't just jump into an ice bath. Like, maybe work your way into it. What are some of those more advanced things that you suggest as well, Martin, to help this path of ours?
That's a great question, and I'm just gonna go with my gut here, and I know that when I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking, and then I will regret later that I didn't say something else. But anyway,
a new thought will come. I'm sure you'll launch. What will happen is you'll get a new thought off of this, then all of a sudden you'll be like, okay.
Well, I think that because my head is like 12 hours a day ingrained in how do we solve the big mental health crisis in the world, with us working with big corporations and really getting some headway now finally after a couple of years of refining the product and the service and all of that. What's not being talked about enough is that we can create sustainable individuals who are better, like you guys, right? Who are just who got it. You cracked the nut, Russ. You've done it for years, Sarah. I mean, we all have good bodies and healthy bodies and happy lives, but there's something systemically that we're not getting. And this is what I'm focused on right now. It's what are we missing at a society level that will keep haunting us as a human species if we don't talk about it? And that is, how do we create sustainable leaders in sustainable organizations that are born to thrive, not born to drive? And that's really like it's a theme over here in the Nordics. I don't know whether it is in your neck of the woods, but create the fact that there's some studies actually from a Danish university that indicates that stress, like mental stress, it's a contaminant. I mean, it contaminates with like 35%. So if you have a stressed leader in your group, 35% of the people in that group will also be stressed just because that leader is stressed. Now, there's also studies that point to it can go up to even 60%. So there's a lot of data there that I think we're just starting to see now that, if we can try and fix people at the right level in an organization and figure out what's actually causing the stress, that's as important as the individual having coping tactics for dealing with stress, in my opinion. And that speaks to, I mean, as a business, we have a saying that we're purpose-led, we want purpose before profit. A lot of investors are shaking their head when we're saying that, but it's like, we're not here to just continuously fix stress for the individual. We are here to solve the problem. We are here to create organizations and a society where stress is accepted as a norm, but it's a balanced way of life that is something that's not a taboo anymore. But it's just like, I don't know what to compare it to, but it's just a normal thing that we know what to do about when it hits us as individuals, and organizations and societies should do whatever they can to lower the stress levels, because otherwise we're just going to continue to see a rise in chronic disease, as we still do. Look at all the numbers. Chronic disease, 80% of which can be prevented, continue to rise. What do you have? You have countries like France increasing the age of pension, right? Like, when can you retire? It's like, and then that's not exactly going to solve the problem either. Like, so, but they do it because they think they need more money. Like, that's a fair problem for as a country to have. But those higher level things, we're not talking enough about, in my opinion.
No, but in fact, people are not talking about it at all. But that's a very lofty goal, to try and change that fundamental way that society is operating, because right now I feel like there's kind of a problem with the system. There's a problem with the way society's running, in that we're kind of totally on the wrong track in a lot of ways. The health system is totally on the wrong track. It's totally motivated by profit and actually keeping people sick because that's where the money is. The same with the financial system, the same with the social system. So, I kind of understand your goal, but it's, how do you think you can kind of make an inroad in that? Because it's
going to take another decade.
Another decade, yeah.
No, but it's I know it's a big audacious goal, but those are usually what drives people. And I'm certainly, our organization is not free of stress. Our own little organization, we're only like 10 people now, but still we're not free of stress. But we talk about it, we're balanced about it, and when somebody cocks up and it yells at somebody else, we talk about it. Like it's a cultural thing, right? And I think in a lot of organizations, especially in America, I worked a lot in America, I worked a lot in the UK, and in Denmark as well. It's just that we need to have a better way of working together in many, many ways. And when you listen to big tech company bosses like Elon Musk, for instance, right, who's a hardcore driver who will push through to 2 a.m. in the morning and all. I mean, that's obviously not helping either, right? And him, not being as healthy as he could have been, it's not helping his employees to be inspired by him either, right? So there's some things there that I know we're never going to solve it 100%. But what I do believe in is people rallying together and creating a movement of a different opinion. And I've worked enough with change management in my life to know that there's something called the rule of thirds, which is, I believe we already have 1/3 of the world convinced that what we're talking about here is the right way. We need the other half, like the other 1/3, like then we have 2/3, right? Then we will get rolling. And it was the same thing with when we started the biohacking movement. It's like I always have those blocks in my head that we need to convince 2/3. That there's always going to be the naysayers, but who cares?
And sorry, Russ, I know this is your question now, but while we've got Martin on, because you kind of a bit of a big thinker, what do you think about this kind of AI revolution and what that going to do for society? Because it seems to me like your goal, we need more nature, we need more community. We're kind of on a path that seems to me to be veering off all of that.
Yeah. I haven't cracked that fully in my head yet, honestly. I'm still absorbing what's happening in the world right now. I think AI is going to help us in the long run, but right now it's a lot of hype. I've decided that I'm going to spend at least 3 hours, which is nothing, but I'm spending at least 3 hours a week just trying to understand and get a grasp on how I can use it. I do use it every day, honestly. But do I think that it's right now going to change society? Yeah, actually. Do I think that it's evolving at a pace we've never seen before, and it's going to be, crazy in just 6 and 12 months from now? Yes. Do I think it's going to hit low cost labor markets like Poland and Manila and India and so on, where you have a lot of tech people and graphics people and other things that are more and more automated, but day by day? It used to be like releases to new products came out every 6 months, and then Adobe would be slightly better at doing something. Now it's like every day. So yes, it's going to change. It's going to be a lot of nearshoring, which means countries that are already rich are going to be better off. Unfortunately, they're going to be more productive. They're going to do more things. Is it going to make us more stressed if we're not like careful? Yes. Deeply concerned about those other countries like Indonesia, India, and so on. Like, what are they going to do? Because we're going to have a million more apps and billion more terabytes of random shit to traverse through on the internet, right? So I haven't solved that one yet, but I'm sure somebody will. But I'm following the topic quite deeply. So
yeah, it's we were talking to someone the other day, and I do my primary job is really within data and machine learning, and customer behaviors and things like that. But do you think on the other end, and where the path goes is we have a lot of bored humans who won't be thinking, won't be learning, or we're going to be learning at a different pace because we're not going to be needing to. I always go back to a very basic thing about directions and trying to get from here to there. I used to call and say, okay, Mom, to get to my house, you need to go on this street, look for this gas station on the corner, go right here. I mean, that is no longer. So we no longer need that GPS tracker in our brain because we have it on our phone. So we're going to have a lot of brain space to fill. I don't know what that gets filled with, right? Does it get filled with the poison and toxicity of social media, or does it get filled with getting outside and not having to do the mundane tasks that you were busy doing inside? And I think that's going to be something you mentioned in the beginning here is building better habits, and building different habits. And so it's not about hacking the AI. It's more about learning what you're going to need to start doing to fill in that empty time that you're going to have. When it used to take you 6 hours to get a task done at work, like write something, now it might take you one. And you're editing. Now I've got 5 hours. It doesn't mean I'm going to work more. Does it mean I'm going to create more stress? Probably. So I that's what worries me, is what we fill that time with. But I'm curious what you think about that too, because I feel like, how do you build those habits of breaking yourself free of filling it with more technology, filling it with more dopamine hits of, watching more shows on TV and all those things, to, doing things outside and getting outside? It might make us better. It might, I don't know. I mean, just positive here.
Well, I may be hopelessly naive in saying that I'm hopeful that people will fill their lives with more meaningful things than tech. I personally will. I know I'm speaking for probably not all of humanity here, but I think there's something ingrained in us which is going to take a long time to get rid of, and that is just doing things with our hands and doing things. I mean, a lot of people will not, but still, doing physical things is we're wired to do that. And I'm sure in 20 years from now, we're going to have people who are half crippled because they've spent their entire lives in front of a laptop or a phone.
Yeah.
And we're going to have cures because, and we're going to have AI who will have cures for everything, and we're going to solve cancer, and we're going to do all those great things with the help of AI, no doubt. But I also think AI has the potential to, like you say, give us more time. And smart people will know that. Like, there's a reason that the tech bosses are building their own massive, what do you call it, compounds with them and all their friends living on vast estates, right? Where they're not letting their kids have devices all the time, where they're schooling them without devices, where they're teaching them forest school things, right? Which again, here in the Nordics, it's been a theme for some time now. It's coming back up again. The government has actually just decided that they're going to remove iPads for children in schools at the age of like 5 to 15, I think it is. For the same reason that, I mean, we need as humanity to go back to what's more natural, because we're starting to see the consequences. And again, AI modeling of impact on your health is just going to be even better. So I think science will have a massive kickoff in terms of new findings, which is going to help us. I'm trying to set aside all the negative potential side, because I'm
Of course. Yeah, we have to. We have to, because we're going down that road. So we might as well embrace it, because that's what's happening. So tell us a bit then about your company, Martin, before we kind of sign off. Tell us about BioWatch and why you set it up, because I know lots of people listening will be thinking, yeah, I could do with some of that help. You're so kind of grounded in what you're saying. And I think that's part of being in the Nordic countries. You're so much more in touch with nature and everything that's going on. So tell us about BioWatch.
Thank you. Well, yeah. So BioWatch is really, we call it a proactive health data company. And our aim is to become one of the top 3 trusted health data companies in Europe. And the challenge we're trying to solve, as I mentioned a couple of times, is first and foremost, working with stress and screening and solving stress, screening for and solving stress. And we do that in a number of ways. We do it, we have a whole little recipe for how we test for stress. So we test for cortisol in a saliva test that we've developed, which is very convenient for employees to take home and take in the morning. So we get the cortisol awakening response. We have a lot of data on how that correlates to the subjective score. So people are answering a lot of questions. And we're finding, and this is really, really interesting, we're finding that 48% of those that we test mentally, when they score themselves in terms of stress, they're saying they're not stressed, but 48% are showing significant signs of physical stress in their body, one way or the other, the way that we measure it. So there's this whole mismatch. And this is part of the problem, that people don't know what stress actually is. So early detection, you can call it, is basically what we do.
Well, you get too used to it, I suppose. You get too used to living in that state.
So we give people insights based on their data. And we teach them how
Martin, can I ask something on this? Because this is a topic I've been having for a long time. The definition of the word stress, the way we define it as everything that's out of our control that we worry about, and we sometimes push everything into stress. It's like stress. Like, how do we break it down so it's not just a word we use to describe fear, to describe all the things that we are going through that are out of our control? Like, I don't know. I just feel like we make such a great excuse for stress as being like, well, that's why I have that rash, but there's something that caused the stress, right? So how do we break it down so it's not just an easy excuse for people to say, I'm stressed out, so deal with it?
Yeah, that's a good point, Russ. And it's what we're trying to quantify as well by collecting a lot of data on our test subjects. And to me, I mean, the classic term is obviously there is eustress, good stress, bad stress, right? It's like that's the popular way of talking about stress. But like I said in the beginning, I think it's much of it's a taboo, right? Stress is like a diagnosis. Well, actually, it's a physiological phenomenon in the body, like hormesis, right? It's like whatever we do that's putting a little bit of strain on our body or our mind, it's going to generate a chemical reaction in our body that's going to, like exercise, it's going to induce inflammation in the muscle because of the tearing of the fibers and all of that. Like that stress on the body, it's actually good stress until a certain point when, like I did the other day, you'd work out too long because you're dumb and you do a workout or whatever. Like, so there is that we need, and that's part of our course, by the way, that we teach employees. We talk about hormesis. We talk about how stop thinking about stress as a diagnosis where you crawl up in bed and can't do anything. It's a natural thing. You need to learn what your body is telling you. You need to balance the signals with the appropriate behavior to correct the signals. And it's about the nervous system. It's about understanding that kind of autonomous, sympathetic and parasympathetic activity, and the fact that you need both. You can't just be parasympathetic and not stressed at all, because then you will not evolve as a person. And I've tried that actually for some time. Just this little trick with breathing through the left nostril is going to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. You can do that for an hour during a day. And there's actually a study from India where they did that for a month, and they showed significantly increase in HRV and some other heart rate or cardiovascular risk marker they measured for. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But my point here is that you get really sluggish when you just have parasympathetic activity for hours and hours. But it feels great, right? But anyway, I'm just rambling here. But stress is many things, Russ, and it will always be many things. And we need to teach people that the signals is what you need to learn about,
right,
and then deal accordingly.
Yeah.
People are shutting off the signals today.
And there's data signals, and then there's just knowing your body and understanding your body and dealing with it and responding to it in a different way, which is what we should be teaching our children, right? And my daughter, who's sitting right here, has a tendency when she's studying for school or doing something new she just gets completely overwhelmed and starts crying and screaming and and that's like but the response is that it's hard to teach her to respond differently. But that's my job as a parent, is to calm.
No, it's a great example. It's a great example, and it's actually reminded me of something that we also are branding ourselves on, which is the body-mind connection. Like it's the fact that you cannot separate the two. It's why we've discovered we're testing blood-based biomarkers very simply as well, testing vitamin D and B6 and B12, and we found out, and there's lots of studies backing this up, that if you're low on vitamin D, which 82% of the people we test are low on vitamin D, 50% are critically low. Like critically low. And the same with B vitamins. If they're not in check, forget coaching people to a better state mentally. There's just not going to be any neuro activity in place to actually deal with the coaching you get in. So you can be at a therapist for 6 months and not move them. If you induce the right, not only exercises, but also supplements and food, you see recovery a lot faster. And to your point, Russ, about your daughter, this is where noradrenaline in the brain, like the cold shower hack, like telling yourself you're in something really, really unpleasant, a cold shower, but you're telling yourself and your nervous system that this is okay. There is a difference between the adrenaline shock in the body and the brain. And that's actually what's teaching you to cope, and your daughter to cope with this stressful situation. So that's a little trick. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's resilience, isn't it? That's the word. It's about finding ways, because we're not going to get rid of the stress necessarily, but dealing with it. But I like that mind-body connection. Yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense.
Indeed.
Yeah. So where can we find you, Martin? Because we're coming to the end of the interview, but I just want to make sure people know where they can get hold of you.
So the best place is Instagram or LinkedIn, just Martin Kremmer. And our website is biowatch.me. There is an English version, but right now we're mainly focused in Denmark, but we do have some clients outside of Denmark. So we do take clients in. So just give me a shout and we'll work something out.
Perfect. Well, it's great to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week in person, in the flesh.
Indeed, you too.
And yes, thank you for coming on, Martin.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Breaking the gray.